God of the universe, maker of the stars. Who am I that you would know my name?
Welcome to episode number 100 of Life on Purpose. And almost 3 years ago, the inception of this program. Over these 3 years, it has morphed a bit. We've had some changes that have happened. I think what it was about a year ago, Alex Stiles came in as co-host. And Alex, welcome tonight to episode 100.
Oh, 100. That is an amazing and special number. I find myself wondering, and we need to ask, we only have one of the OG four. But so let's just ask you, did you envision episode 100 when you started? Was that in your, were you even thinking in those numbers?
I was envisioning episode 1 to see if we could get through that one. And we made it through, and we've had a great time through it. I think probably one of the only people on the earth that probably has listened to all of them is you, by the way. There are a few others out there that have done that. But tonight, we get to introduce a guest host, and that is Jared Boehm. Okay, I know that it looks like Boehm, but it is actually Jared Boehm. And Jared and I go back, Jared, what is it, 2.5 years now?
Yep. It's been 2.5 years. Yep, it's been 2.5 years.
All right.
I think it was March of 2023.
And I was up in Winchester, Kentucky, speaking to a youth group, the adults, and had the opportunity to meet this young man. And I had no idea when I was driving up. Alex, you talk about, did I have planned? Okay, episode 100. Was I thinking about episode 100? Absolutely not. When I was driving to Winchester, Kentucky 2.5 years ago, the last thing on my mind was meeting a young man like Jared. And he has been a great friend through the years. Jared, we want to, and if I would have, now you knew, okay, this was September of 2022 that the inception of Life on Purpose was. If I would have said to you, sitting in that room 2.5 years ago in Winchester, Kentucky at Beit Menorah, hey, Jared, by the way, now that we've had this prayer together of you making this decision to follow the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, hey, 2.5 years from now, you're going to be on a podcast with me. What would you have said or done?
I would have said, what?
Yeah.
Fair.
Is there another Jared in this room?
Yeah. You'd have probably gotten up and walked out.
Probably.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt. So we've gone through a lot of things together, including being in Tennessee a few years ago, an infamous meeting with a young lady who you now call your wife, and just finished her first day of college.
That's right.
Yeah. So
congratulations.
Yeah. So, hey, Alex, I'm going to turn this over to you. You really don't know much about Jerry. You know some, but how about you asking some questions to get to know this young man so everybody else out there can?
Absolutely. So I've got like 500,000 questions. We're probably going to only make it through about 250,000 of them in this 1 hour. Logically.
Wow, you think I'm going to give short answers?
Right. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, fair. Do you do the same thing to your wife where you give like a 6-paragraph answer and she wanted the first sentence answer?
All the time.
That was a joke at Life Assembly this last Shabbat, by the way.
It was a joke at Life Assembly. We have a fellow congregation member, brother, who is he's actually literally a rocket scientist. I love being able to say that. So does Mike. And his wife does the same thing. She asks him a question. And then she interrupts him, telling him, you answered my question with the first sentence. And he's like, I've got like 30 minutes more explanation to go. So I do have I do have some awesome questions. So, We you should definitely anyone who hasn't definitely should go back to the first few episodes of Life on Purpose, where they address the facts. The first thing that the disciples asked Yeshua was, "Where are you from?" There's a deep study there that we've already done on Life on Purpose about how people judge where you're from. But let's start out with really basic because I got harder questions. Let's start out. Where are you from, Jared?
I'm originally from Indianapolis, but I've lived in Kentucky now for about 20 years.
All right. I got some family up in the direction of Kentucky. So I've ended up studying a lot of philosophy. I won't say a
Okay.
lot of philosophy. I will say that I studied a little bit about a lot of different philosophy schools and came up with only one of them that I actually liked. And this is going somewhere, I promise. Bear with me. So I ended up going with with the philosophy of Stoicism, because it very much focuses on the idea that, okay, life sucks, but what are you going to do to make yourself effective in life and take care of yourself and your family? I appreciated that area of philosophy very much because it was very much action oriented. You're not going to find a Stoic locking themselves away in a monastery somewhere away from all of humanity because their idea is that you can't interact with humanity and you can't make humanity better if you've isolated yourself from this. I find this very much agrees with the way I should approach Christianity, with their and I use the term Christianity loosely, as I know we've covered over this podcast before. Trying to be a follower of Yeshua, uh, I need to be involved in my world to some extent. So I'm going with somewhere this. I'm looping back around. One of this directions of philosophy has led me to study people. One of the most interesting things about people, weirdly enough, is what do they complain about? It tells you so much more about them than what they talk about. And you had one of the most interesting complaints I've heard in a long time. See, the way Mike Clayton tells the story, and you'll have to correct this here if there's any
Whoops.
embellishment. Yeah, yeah. See, Mike Clayton tells the story that you're walking along with him and you're like, hey, that you're complaining that you can't find a wife to start a family with. And as he tells the story, the elevator's open and there your future wife, elevator doors open and there your future wife stands. But I find that a very fascinating complaint, sir. I cannot find a wife. Now, I'm going to turn this over to you in just a second, but when I was 21 in the last semester of nursing school and got asked if I would go out with a woman on a blind date, I said, yeah, sure. I guess. The legit quote, famous words. Sure, I guess. That's how I met your mother. That's what I get to tell my children. I met my wife on an absolute blind date because one of my coworkers set me up. I was not thinking about the future, okay? Now, I wasn't. So my question is, and I turn this over to you, is what influence was there in your life, be it a person, be it scripture, what led you to this complaint? I cannot find a wife.
Wow, there's a question.
Hmm. He studied the Stoics, remember? Hmm.
Well, my parents always had a really good marriage. My parents got married 2 years where they had me and they always stayed together. So I had a good understanding of what a relationship should be. And as you get older, you start realizing, this house is kind of lonely. My only friend's the dog. So you kind of like, start having, a desire for, something more.
I think that's
So
an
then,
amazing No, go ahead.
no,
Go
no,
ahead.
you go ahead.
No, I think that's an amazing statement because Mike and I have both shared that we had, to some extent, both of us had difficult childhoods. I don't say anything about Mike that he hasn't already shared, right? My parents are divorced.
Mhm.
Mike's dad passed away. Mike was not fortunate enough to have a good relationship with his father. He shared that before. So, are you, Mike and I come from these situations where we come from the grim side of things, where maybe our efforts towards our children and towards our wives are to give them what we did not have. And forgive me if that's a harsh statement towards my parents. I don't mean that in a way. I've had extensive conversations with my mom about and repaired my relationship with my mother since she and I have both, moved forward. That's a separate story. I don't want to divert into that. But so is it possible, Mike and I come from the grim side, but is it possible that you can testify, am I gathering correctly, that you can kind of testify to the value of having grown up in a home that managed to place an extensive value on marriage? I feel I'm losing words, but do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I grew up in a very good home. So when I was 2 years old, I was diagnosed with autism. At the age of 4, I could only say 10 words.
Mhm.
So it was my mom who bent over backwards to do everything she had to do. That's why we moved from Indiana to Kentucky for a different school. And then by sixth grade, my mom just homeschooled me for the rest of my life. Um, I had one other sibling, which is my sister, and my parents did, everything to provide for us, take care of us. Never had to once question whether or not we were loved. So we had a very good childhood, very good, loving parents, and that's such a rarity in our culture.
So it absolutely is. You said two things and you said them back to back,
Yeah.
almost as if they were the same thing. But I want to point out that they're not. You said they provided for us. We never had to wonder if we were loved.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Those are actually separate things.
Yeah.
And I think it's absolutely amazing. And I don't think you recognize that. I think it's absolutely amazing that you ended up having both. Because I've shared before, children spell love Time, time.
Hmm.
Children don't know that you're poor. They have
Yeah.
no clue.
Yeah.
I grew up in a trailer. I didn't know I was poor. My dad brought home scrap wood. He was a construction worker. He brought home literally scrap wood and nails from the job and patched the holes in the trailer. Right? Like I had no clue I was poor. All that I remembered was, Dad, will you play with me? Mom, this is universal. Okay, this is for all children. The other thing I would tell you, sir, is that I wish I had this badge in front of me and I'll hold it up. But I work as a case manager, as a nurse. I've been a neurocritical nurse for 13 years, and then I transitioned to case management. But my newest badge reel, the little thing that holds your badge, it says undiagnosed, but we're all pretty sure. And in my case, that's autism, sir. So my wife, long before I ever acknowledged that I was absolutely autistic, high functional autism, but absolutely on the autism spectrum disorder, my wife ended up improving our marriage as by she began researching autism and literally like articles on how to be married to an autistic person.
Wow.
So although I have yet to obtain the official diagnosis, we're all pretty sure, sir.
Hmm. Interesting. Now, let me jump in here.
Yes.
Jared, I love what you just said there, Alex, in your question of the difference in that, I want to find a wife. Um, and this is one of the things I've respected about Jared so much is he wasn't just out trying to find a girlfriend. He had some goals in his life, and I saw that with him. And so he had something that he knew, I want to recreate this. Jared, would that be a fair statement?
Fair.
Okay. And also, you lost your mom just over a year ago.
It was actually 11 months ago.
11 months. Okay.
But
So sorry.
Go ahead.
something I would say on that is my mom always used to my mom was real sick for since she was 16,
Oh,
and she always used to say that, she just wanted to live long enough to get me married off.
hmm.
So Yah was very gracious to her and honored that request.
Yeah, and interesting enough, many people know I officiated the wedding for you and
Mhm.
Aurora, which was just a blessing in my life. But your mom was sick and had to go back and was not able to be there that day, so we were able to film it so she could see that. So she passed away. My mother passed away actually 3 days ago. Would have been 10 years. So yeah, this is what life is. You are have some anybody that follows you on Facebook. Uh, you're kind of like a scientific study in something, and I haven't quite figured out what it is yet. But you have a couple of different strange, I would say, strange hobbies. Um, you were at one time an agnostic. Now, you were raised in a church religious environment. Am I right in that?
So my parents, for most of my childhood, were actually youth ministers. Now, they didn't necessarily stay at the same church very long because because either a church would split or they get called someplace else. So I've been a part of several different churches, but through most of my life, they were always youth ministers still.
Okay. So I would imagine that they shared their faith fairly openly at home.
Oh, yeah. My mom used to read Fox's Book of Martyrs to us as bedtime stories.
Wow. No,
Yeah,
that,
you were okay with it, but the neighbor kids weren't.
yeah. I mean, yeah, going to sleep with okay, so how did Peter die? Oh, he was hung upside down on a cross. Okay. Yeah. So God was not something that was out of the box with you. You were raised with some type of understanding at least, but ended up becoming an agnostic. Or would you say atheist?
I would say agnostic would probably be more accurate.
Okay. How do you get mom and dad are stable? Mom and dad are providing. Mom and dad are loving. Mom and dad are youth pastors, and I'm going to end up becoming agnostic. How do you get to that place?
Well, there's a couple different ways, but one way you get to that place is not feeling worthy. Like you have this distorted view of God as kind of like angry sky daddy. So you kind of always feel condemned. You feel like you're never good enough. And at some point, it just becomes easier if he doesn't exist.
Yes. Mhm. Life is much easier if there is not a God.
Yes,
If there is not a higher power that I am responsible to. See,
exactly.
if I am the highest authority that I am responsible to, I'm not wrong.
Hmm.
But if there's a higher authority, then somehow I have to question everything I've done.
Right. Because there's a few different reasons you can go down that road. One reason is, oh, I love my sin and I don't want to, have to stop doing it. I don't want to be accountable to anybody. So it's, more convenient if there's no God. The other way is, I don't think God loves me. I feel condemned no matter what. So it'd also be easier if there is no God. And then there's also a lot of people who kind of have a lot of very bad experiences in churches where they will equate
Yeah.
bad experience with people as bad experiences with God.
Mhm.
And because they've been hurt, it's also easy if there is no God. So
Absolutely.
then,
Hmm.
so then they will go through any extreme to try to validate that viewpoint because it always starts as a heart problem, but then it ends up as an intellectual problem. Because then
Oh,
you start,
absolutely. Yes. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
because then you start, trying to look at like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Stephen Hawking or someone
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
validate your opinion. And then you're going
Hmm.
around, questioning Christians who just don't have answers, and you feel really
So
smart for a while.
that is the next question I wanted to directly take you to,
Okay.
because I want this off you. Did you find that I'm trying to phrase this properly, but it's not like I got to get it right in one phrase. Um, did you find that in some way people would imply that your intellect, you're obviously intelligent, all right? Did you find that people would imply that your intellect should somehow take you away from God? And I
Oh,
suppose
definitely.
yeah, okay.
Definitely.
So I read, have you read Neil deGrasse? I listened to it in audiobook, actually. It was fun listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson actually narrate it. His Astronomy for People in a Hurry. You ever listen to that one?
No, the main
Okay,
thing I remember of him is his Cosmos, which is actually Carl Sagan he just redid.
got it. So I ended up doing, I ended up listening. It's like a 6 hour audiobook. If you ever want to hear an evolutionist complete, like, he explains an evolutionist standpoint of the Big Bang Theory better than you'll ever hear anyone else explain. Okay,
Yeah.
like he has that capacity. Okay. And so I ended up listening to it. And so because I wanted to understand, not because I was questioning my faith at the time, but because at that moment I was solid in my faith and I wanted to know, what do the evolutionists believe? What I came across is that people seem to think that you have to set aside your intellect and your knowledge in order to accept faith. Did you encounter that as well yourself, sir?
Having to set aside knowledge to accept faith. Yeah, I encountered that.
I love now going back and taking everything I've learned and interpreting science through the viewpoint of God
Hmm.
instead of interpreting God from mankind's limited viewpoint of science.
Well, my statement that I used it's been quite some time ago is my feeling is that science is man's attempt to explain the creator without giving him credit for being the creator.
Sadly, most of modern science, yes. It
And
doesn't
I
have to be that way.
and ironically, I think it was C.S. Lewis who said something to the effect that men became scientific because they observed laws in nature and knew that meant there had to be a lawgiver.
Mm.
Ooh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I got to go
yeah.
back. I got to go back a little bit
Yeah.
because having been in ministry for 30 something years now, um, usually the track record is, and you mentioned that you saw a number of church splits. You
Mhm.
saw some issues where your parents went from one place to another. So yes, there is some hurt there, but normally a person that becomes pretty much, and I understand this to a certain point because I guess at one point in my life, for a number of years, I would have probably been um, more classified as a agnostic wannabe. I was kind of like hoping that he wasn't because I knew that I knew he was, which was a issue, and I knew was a problem, and so it would have been better if he hadn't have been. But I'm still curious. How do you go from this nurturing parents to I really hope that there's no God out there, that there's no creator? Was there something that kind of clicked along the way? Something that turned off a switch that was like, hit that, and we're going to go somewhere different.
Not really. Like with going from being raised in a Christian setting to agnostic or atheism, a lot of it was just that not feeling like God really loved me, not feeling like I was ever good enough. And then you start, like struggling with like, sin and stuff, and you think your sin's, a bigger deal than, the people in your church do. You kind of, don't really have any place to really turn to. And that's one thing that's really weird is I find with kids, and this is myself, is there some things you might tell like a pastor or youth minister that you don't necessarily want to talk to your parents about?
Mhm.
So a lot of my questions I just kind of like just never asked because I just didn't really know who to ask them to.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
following this.
Okay. Yeah. I will
This is
inter.
yeah, making sense. Go ahead, Alex.
I definitely need to interject here in that I found questions that I remember as a young teen struggling with these questions. And this is harsh, but you got to understand, okay, you got one chance
Mm-hmm.
to answer my questions.
Mm-hmm.
And if you brush me off, like I remember wanting to know. I remember asking my pastor, I won't name the pastor, I won't name the church, it doesn't remember matter.
Mhm.
But I remember asking my pastor, what do you mean it didn't rain on the earth? In this, what I hope, this idea of pre-flood
Mm-hmm.
that we had the, same canopy, same style that we have over Venus. I remember asking him once, I'm like, I want to understand this. And he said, well, sometime we'll get together and we'll study that sometime later. I never asked him another question again.
Mm-hmm.
This is a harsh statement. If you're any type of a youth leader out there listening to this, you have one chance and one chance only. Because what I heard with that was that my curiosity and my questions didn't matter to him. Now, maybe that was unfair. I don't know. I don't know what he was going through in life. I know that's a harsh statement, but that's what you got to understand is the mentality of children. I'll call myself a child at the time. Okay. Of children who come at you and work up the courage to ask something where they might be wrong. You got to understand you got one chance. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I can relate to that because let me tell you, I was at a Sukkot many years ago, and a couple walked up to me and they said, and I was one of the speakers, and they said, "Mike, could we ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." And so they went over this question. I can't remember. I have no clue what the question was, and they went on with this question, and I at the end I looked at him and I said, "I don't know." Okay. And they looked at me and said, "Thank you so much." I'm like, "Wait a minute. You ask me a question, I say I don't know, and you say thank you.
How
What's
does
up
that
with
work?
this?" Yeah, what's up with this? And they said, "Well, we went to a different teacher and asked them, and they came up with something that we knew they knew nothing about what they were talking about, but wanted to impress us basically with the answer. Thank you for being honest with us."
Mm-hmm.
But I
Absolutely.
just find it, I mean, you guys both have been around me in youth ministry. Okay, Jared, you more Alex kind of gets a lot of the blowback of when I come back home and telling about it, and we have, he's got a sister-in-law that was deeply impacted at this last camp that we were at, um,
Yes.
and so you, Jared, you've been with me in these youth meetings, and this is kind of what I want to. I want to be that person that they trust to come to find answers.
Mhm.
That's my goal because I understand that there are so few, as you mentioned, Alex, there are so few adults out there that are willing, and this is a harsh statement. There are so few adults that are willing to give young people their time.
Feel very much I need to follow. I will keep this PG because we didn't give any type of warning before we started this show. But I remember gathering up my courage as a 14-year-old young male and asking an adult who was in fact a Sunday school teacher for guidance on lust. I won't take this any farther than that because we did give a type of warning. My word, you would have thought they'd contracted tetanus and their jaw locked up. Nothing. You know what? I never reached out to anyone again.
Yeah.
Faced that entire battle on my own. As a
Oh
young
yeah.
teen, not exactly the examples I should have had, but that person got one chance,
Mm.
right? But I swear, you bring some difficult conversations. It's like these old men at church, their jaws lock up. Whether it be something of difficult conversations of lust, or heaven forbid, you ask them about financial mistakes, or you ask them about, I'm doubting my faith. Do you know how few I could say that to?
Oh,
So to be the guy that is willing to talk and willing to answer those questions, it's huge. Like there is
mm.
not a single question I couldn't ask you right now. You've established that. As I say, our only parameters are, did we give a parental warning before we started our podcast?
Yeah.
Okay. But that is a huge thing. Do not ever devalue that. And if a child, anyone younger than you, let me back it up. Let me take it away from child. Anyone younger than you comes up to you, and I'm talking anyone younger than you, Jared, anyone younger than me, comes up and asks us a question. It is a huge show of vulnerability, and you should ponder that you really should probably answer that question because for whatever reason, they weren't able to ask their parents that question. And you're
Yep.
the person they turn to.
Mhm. Mm.
So
Mm.
true.
Jared, I got to back up a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay. Again, and this is intriguing me because I remember so vividly the first time we met, sitting there with the infamous Dustin Trapp. Um, that anybody that's ever met Dustin, you never say, "Hey, do you remember Dustin Trapp?" No,
Oh
I
no, I
don't.
remember him.
Yeah, yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, everybody remembers Dustin, but
Life of every party.
yeah, because he is the party, no matter where he is at. And I got to talk to him. I got to call him. He's been trying to call me for a few weeks, and I haven't taken the time. And Dustin, I'm going to do that. Um, but especially after this program. Um, but I remember sitting there and I saw this young man, and we've talked about this with a recording me and you did together years ago, um, that was dealing with how can God possibly love me? Okay,
Mhm.
I'm still baffled here how we go from great mom and dad, mom gives everything, including, homeschooling to get you out of this autism thing, providing for you, loving you, all of this, and then you in turn come out of that with I'm unworthy of God's love. I still can't in my mind put that together.
I think a lot of it was low self-esteem because I was always different than everybody else growing up. I never had a lot of friends growing up.
Ah,
So,
ah,
I was actually going to go that same route and ask if that was the component of it because I remember, I've got two guys I call friends now.
yeah,
So there's a huge, huge impact on social acceptance. Like you cannot minimize the idea of are you socially accepted because we're never meant to exist. Um, Never meant to exist individually. And to bring this closer, it would be, well, if what I ended up finding when I went my farthest away from God was, as I've said before, I think I've said it before in this program, I never had a problem with God, but I had a problem with churchgoers. Mike has phrased it better. He says he at one point he had a problem with the people who claim to hang out with him. I
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
yeah,
And so
Well,
understand that, sorry, the being alienated or not a part of the group of the people that came to hang out with God. Well, if his people don't accept me, why would God accept me?
uh,
oh,
okay, Jared, go for it.
I was gonna say to that thing you said about mistaking how people treat you for how God thinks of you. If somebody plays Beethoven badly, do you blame Beethoven or the musician? So if somebody plays
Exactly.
so if somebody plays a Christian badly, who are you gonna blame?
You
God
can
or the
blame the
person who played
person,
him
you can
badly.
blame God. Yeah.
Yeah,
You don't hate Beethoven. You don't hate his
exactly.
Ninth Symphony. His Ninth
Right.
Symphony is amazing, but someone played it badly.
Exactly.
Don't hate his Ninth Symphony. Go look for someone else who plays it better in order to be your role model in life and
Okay, but
direct you closer to God.
open up your insurance policy on your car, on your house, on anything, and there's a clause in there of acts of God. I
Hmm?
mean, even the insurance company does this. When's the last time you
Why is it?
saw in your insurance policy acts of Satan?
That's what I say. Where's the axe of Hasatan?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, really.
Where's the axe of the enemy?
So let's blame God for everything. Okay, back to you, Jared, on this. I think we kind of cut you off there a little bit from a statement.
No, no, you're fine. I made my statement.
Okay, okay. So you were one of those people that you felt pretty isolated because you were different. You had different values. You had different ideas. You had different purpose in life. Am
Yep.
I on track?
Hmm.
Okay, so let's get a show of hands of the people that are listening out there. That's how you feel. Okay. Has that changed? I've said this many times. And both of you have heard me say this. I can be in a room of 1,000 people and be totally alone.
I actually feel more alone when I'm in a group of people. Like if you go to a
Jordan.
church or something,
Oh, wow.
oftentimes everyone has their own clique and you're just kind of standing there by yourself going, why did I come? Why did they invite me?
The larger the group of people, the more alone I feel. The
Yep.
smaller the group of people, and the more pressure, then I can end up feeling connected. Yeah.
Jared, you just put a post on Facebook the other day about that. Yeah. Anybody that doesn't follow Jared on Facebook, it's really fun. You'll be like, huh? I've never met anybody like this. You just nailed something. Okay, you just took my statement to a different level. Now I realize I feel more alone in a group of people than I do by myself or with just a few people. Alex, we get together at Life Assembly. I mean, I feel fulfilled there.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Yes.
it,
Yes. 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 Mhm.
it's amazing. But I can
Mhm.
go to a place again, 1,000 people, and I feel more alone than I do with these, a dozen or 20 friends that we have.
So part of that ends up being very basic psychology. And then part of it ends up being very deep spirituality. Okay. Part of the basic psychology is am I around a social group that believes the same way I do, encourages me in my beliefs, and supports me in the individual who I am?
Hmm.
Well, if I'm in a very large group of people who do not, who think I'm pretty weird for doing those Jewish things, or who maybe it's even further, think I'm weird that I even believe in God. And wait, I thought you were a smart guy. You mean you don't believe in evolution? You know, then it ends up a lot weirder. Uh, and on a deeper spiritual level, obviously, you end up with people. Are there two or three gathered together in His name?
Hmm.
So, on a deep spiritual level, you can also feel alone and that you know that you are not gathered. Are those individuals who are around you supporting you, and are they putting you down for what you believe, or are they pulling you upward towards Messiah with them as they themselves try to walk that road towards Messiah?
Hmm. So we've got about 10 minutes. And I mean, I've got 100 subjects in my mind that we're going to continue on with this because I have this tendency to believe that what we're talking about here is some things that people have been dealing with in their lives. I think there's been a number of like wow moments, maybe even times that people said it backwards. Wow. Um, they're trained to laugh, folks. These are, yeah, I do that. This prerequisite for being on the program is you have to be, laughing at the appropriate time. So,
It's kind of Pavlov's dogs. You don't see it, but he makes a little clicking sound and we all laugh.
okay,
After
bark,
you didn't get that joke, it's okay.
bark.
Yeah.
Okay, you're supposed to woof. All right, um, get me back on track here. I got myself off track. Jared, in a few minutes we've got, what was the turning point for you of saying, wait a minute, this is a dead end road that I don't want to go down? And I'm kind of thinking that you had to make a conscious effort, a conscious decision of like, no, and going and turning back the other way. Can you tell us, was it a crisis? What happened?
I found that I was never comfortable with being agnostic or an atheist. Ironically, God did not exist so I could do stupid stuff. And then when things got stupid, then he existed so I could blame him. And that doesn't work long term. It just doesn't. It's a bad plan. I would not recommend that to anybody. But in that, you do that long enough, you start feeling very anxious all the time, very paranoid all the time, and just very broken all the time. And it is not a fun way to live. So then you start asking questions and stuff, and start researching stuff. I got really into Rich Mullins because that's when I was like, oh, God is loving. And around that same time, I also kind of had Mormons coming at me, and I was smart enough to go, that's not biblical. That's not right. So that caused me to also go start, looking at my Bible and stuff.
So I'm gonna
So,
love this moment here. Did God pull you towards him by your desire to prove to someone that they were wrong? Because you met me in weird places before, and I love the fact it's like you have an intellect that demands that you know the facts, so he used that to pull you to him.
oh, definitely. That's a big part of it.
Hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember
Wow.
actually, researching like Mormonism. I won't go into it, but to hear the actual gospel versus that gospel, like hearing someone read Romans, there was a moment where I was like, oh, this is all real.
Hmm.
Didn't I say something very similar to you, Pastor Mike Clayton, about the second or third sermon of yours I intended? And I attended, but second or third sermon, I came up and I'm like, you have something real here.
And you said there's something real here, and I want to be a part of it. You know?
Conversations I want to have. Maybe they're two full separate podcasts, Terry.
Yeah. And
But one time,
you cut out
oh,
just a little bit there.
yeah, welcome to satellite internet. It happens. A couple of directions I would love to go with you in the future, Jared. Maybe one of these will be our next podcast. But we have to talk about the parable of the lost coin from a guy who I understand collects lost coins.
Yeah, I got it right
Is this
here.
correct? You got you collect. Okay. So we're going to talk about the lost coin. The second thing I want to talk about is I actually want to talk about this idea of building and losing faith. I want to dedicate an entire podcast to it, specifically something from Daniel Clayton actually developed, and I have picked the baton up from him and carried it further. And I definitely want to pass that baton on.
Hmm.
So we got a lot of Mike has like 100 questions. I've got like 2 questions, but maybe I'm very focused.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the autism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, you're
Yeah.
hyper fixating on something,
Hyperfixated I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which makes you
Well,
really smart about three things.
Exactly.
okay. You guys are going to be fun. I know that. Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of things that we don't have enough time really tonight to dive into some other things. I'm thinking about way too many, but it was interesting to me, Jared, that one of the first places that we actually connected with was with Rich Mullins.
Yeah.
Many, and we actually did that song. His the song he's most popular for was written in 1988, and it's called "Awesome God." Most people don't even know that it has verses to it. It just has a chorus that they sing over and over again. But the song "Step by Step" is one that goes back with me to the early 1980s. And actually, when I was considering going into ministry, I would move my wife and our children, our two children at the time, across country from Tucson to Florida, and end up pastoring. That was a song that was that I felt like the Father just gave me. Step by step, you'll lead me, and I still go back, and that song still just it drives me to tears. Interesting enough, um, people know that I don't sing. Okay, it's just very seldom that I'm going to do anything. And the first time that Jared and Aurora, uh, you guys had a guitar, and was it you or one guitar or
We both had
two?
guitars.
You
We
okay?
both had guitars. Yeah.
And you guys started singing there in the lobby of the hotel that we were in a conference. You guys started singing step by step, and I actually joined in on that one. And so that was one of our connection points was Rich Mullins' music, and I
Yeah.
think still to this day.
Well, the thing I just admire about Rich Mullins is he was one of the only Christians I could think of who was actually open about all of his faults.
Oh,
Like he wasn't perfect, and that was okay. And that was just something that was just so foreign. Like, wait, you can be a Christian and still have hangups? Because when you're a teenager, it's like I must not really be saved because, or God must not really love me because I'm still struggling with
yeah,
this. And I shouldn't be struggling with this because I should be, redeemed now. But
yeah.
like seeing that kind of just brokenness from someone who loved God that much, you're like, that's what it really looks like.
Anybody that would like to get more into that, I have it on DVD, ancient media system as it is. But the movie Ragamuffin Band is, I
Good
believe it's
movie.
on YouTube. Okay, Ragamuffin Band, and it literally goes into his life. Interesting enough to me, he did a song which I love that says, "I'm going to go out like Elijah."
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to go out like Elijah. And Rich Mullins drove a CJ5 or CJ7 Jeep. This was a 1970s edition of a Jeep, and I've owned two or three of those through the years. But he actually ran off the road and put it airborne. So
Yep.
be careful. Be careful what your songs are. You never know.
Mm.
Oh. All right.
Wow.
Well, hey, Jared, final words here, closing up here, and I'll turn it over to Alex, and we'll go from there.
Well, I don't really have any final words except to say just thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, Alex, do you think we ought to vote on having him back?
Oh, I'd say there's no vote. It's a monarchy. God just used him to do good things.
Yeah.
The king just used him to do good things, so he's gonna be back.
Okay. I think I'd go with that because, and I mean, I don't want to be in trouble with his family either. So I've got to be with one of those in Israel. So I don't need her on. I need to be on her good side. Final words there, Alex.
Oh, you know, it's episode 100. Episode one looked nothing like episode 100.
Yeah.
Like, take for episode 100 you just did here, hop straight back, listen to episode one. It's gonna feel like a jarring difference.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's a fellow who tends to close with this same verse all along. He has plans for you.
Yeah.
for good and not for evil. Give you a future and a hope and a purpose. And you don't know what that purpose looks like. You know what that future looks like, because look at episode 1 and it doesn't look like episode 100, folks. But that was the future and the purpose and the hope that he had in mind.
Yeah.
All the way long before episode 1.
And if there's anything that's been stable in these 100 episodes, it's that verse. That every verse has come back to that theme, and a theme for everybody. No matter if you're Jared, you're Alex, you're David Covert, you're Ryan Cribbs, you're Daniel Clayton, a couple of others that have been guest hosts along this time. It doesn't matter who you are. That verse is so appropriate that Alex just quoted. I'm going to quote it again. The verse that's on this little piece of paper that someone handed me at the little girl. You remember that, Jared?
I remember. I was right there.
That was so fun. And when I started opening this, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, because I just asked you if you would come on the program, and we were going to come back and start the program again. So, wow. No matter who you are, no matter where you've been, no matter what you've gone through, understand this verse out of Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11. He says, I know the plans I have for you, plans for good and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Can't be said any better than that. Till next week, guys. Thanks again.
Till next week, be strong.
Who am I that you would know my name? What kind of love would walk through fire and meet me in the flame?